Top 10 films of 2020. Yes, I'm aware it is February 24th, and I'm just now doing a list of top 10 films of 2020, but what do you want from me? I think I'm finally caught up. There are a few movies that I maybe missed out on, but for the most part, I'm content with the list that I have. This was not a good year for movies, and people will blame the pandemic, and they should. There are 3.5 movies on this list that I can officially say I loved. Everything else that ranged from being pretty good on to really enjoying. Typically, in a top 10 list, I have 6, 7, 8 films that I can say that I loved. So not a great year, but I just went with the movies that I enjoyed the most. Let's get started. No need for honorable mentions. Let's jump right into it with number 10. Number 10, 7500. This is an excellent little bottle film starring the great Joseph Gordon-Levitt as a pilot who's experiencing a hijacking. Really well directed, really tense thriller, and it features arguably Joseph Gordon-Levitt's best performance. I mean, I would still go with his performance in 50-50, but overall, a really fun, really tense thriller that I think a lot of people missed out on. It's on Amazon Prime. You should give it a watch. Number 9, Birds of Prey and the Fantabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn. The biggest surprise of 2020. I didn't like Suicide Squad at all. I didn't think the trailers for this looked very good whatsoever, and yet it worked more than it didn't. It features an excellent performance by Margot Robbie as the lead Harley Quinn. All the supporting performances are a lot of fun, but to me, what really made this movie work is I thought Kathy Yan's direction was excellent. I'm really excited to see what she does next. She really made this movie pop. She really made this world come to life, and I thought she did a great job. This was, and I'm not the first person to say this was what Suicide Squad should have been. Number 8, The Devil All the Time. I think that this is a movie that, as time goes on, people are going to come to appreciate more. I think it was a brutally in-your-face movie that dropped, I believe, in late August, early September, in the heart of the pandemic, and I think that was just not a movie that a lot of people wanted to watch at the time, but I really enjoyed it. Thought it featured some excellent performances by the ensemble cast, great lead performance by Tom Holland, and a supporting performance by Robert Pattinson as the preacher that, in my opinion, should get him an Academy Award nomination. He is so creepy in that movie. I like this film a lot. It's not the most subtle movie, but I appreciated the fact that it's just kind of a movie that you don't see get made very often anymore. Number 7, The Kid Detective. I just watched this a couple weeks ago. To quote my friend Blake Kennedy, Adam Brody is the greatest movie star that never was. I think this guy has so much charisma. He has his whole career, and I really hope that this movie, which I think is going to get a pretty big cult following, leads to kind of a resurgence for him. I think he's really great in this. An excellent script and some great direction that really walks that line between being too dark and yet just the right amount of darkly comedic. I've actually seen this movie twice. It's one of the more rewatchable films of 2020. Number 6, Sound of Metal. One of the more authentic films of the year, featuring some great performances. Riz Ahmed should win Best Actor for this. This is a performance that over time I've really grown to appreciate more. But one thing I forgot to say in my review is Paul Raci, the man who plays the head of this kind of compound that Riz Ahmed attends for deaf people, gives such a heartbreaking performance. I mean, he's neck and neck to me with Leslie Odom Jr. as far as who I would pick for Best Supporting Actor this year. He's so great in it. I love the look of the movie. Not a huge fan of the third act. I'm really not a huge fan of the girlfriend subplot in general, but the things about it that really work. It's a depressing experience. Not a movie that I can necessarily say I loved, but it's sure as hell a movie that I really admire. Number 5, One Night in Miami. For a movie that is about some pretty heavy subject matter at points, I commend this film for being genuinely fun, and that is the result of some really solid direction by Regina King and 4 tremendous ensemble performances. You really feel like you learn something when you watch this movie. I loved getting the different points of view by these 4 lead characters. It's a film that I really recommend a lot of people watch. There have been so many films that were made in 2020 about the civil rights era, about the experience that comes with being black in America, and this was the one to me that really cracked the code. This was by far the best of them. Number 4, Class Action Park. This was a documentary that I reviewed that I've seen multiple times now, and I've actually come to enjoy it more over time. With a year like this, you just got to go with the films that you enjoyed the most, and very few films made me laugh as much as this one did. In fact, this one made me laugh probably the hardest of any movie that I saw in 2020. There's a few tonal issues. There's moments where it turns on a dime and becomes pretty darn serious, and those moments are effective. They don't go well with the rest of the documentary, which is really interesting and funny and informative. I can't say I learned more than I have out of some other documentaries, but yet I can't think of very very other documentary films that I found as entertaining as this one. It's on HBO Max. I know a lot of people probably missed it. I highly recommend it. It's one of the best documentaries I've seen in years. Number 3, Hamilton. I am counting this as a movie. I said this in my review for Ma Rainey, and I stand by it. I think it would have been a crime for this thing to have been seen in any other format than this, with its original cast, with Lin-Manuel Miranda, with the people who helped make this thing the phenomenon that it is. There's something just so pure about Hamilton. It's a one in a million thing by a creative genius. Cast is amazing. The soundtrack is next level incredible. If you haven't had a chance to watch it on Disney Plus yet, go ahead and do it. It's one of my favorite movies of the year. Number 2, Aaron Sorkin's The Trial of the Chicago 7. Aaron Sorkin's the best writer in Hollywood, and he was behind the director's chair for this as well. Similar to One Night in Miami, but even better in the sense that it's a movie about some extremely heavy subject matter, and yet it's still a fun watch. You love these characters. You love their interactions. Every single actor brought their A game to this. This is one of those instances in which you could call Sacha Baron Cohen's performance the performance of a lifetime, quite frankly. It's such a perfect role for him. Everyone is great. Gets a little bit schmaltzy near the end, but even I kind of defend that to a certain extent. Such an interesting watch. It's a film that is relevant and yet not over the top. And number 1, this should be a surprise to nobody, Emerald Fennell's Promising Young Woman. There is one thing in my review that I said that I take back, and that's that I think I said I would never watch this movie again. I not only want to watch this movie again, but I want to show it to other people, because this is a movie that you just don't see very often nowadays. It is a film that does have protagonists and antagonists, but there's a huge gray area with that lead character played by Carey Mulligan. Sometimes you're on her side, sometimes you're very conflicted, but it all works. It's such a tense, well-written movie. It's not subtle. Subtlety is not its strength, but it wears that on its sleeve. It right up front, it says, hey, you know what? This is gonna hit you over the head. This is gonna be over the top, and I think that was needed to really hammer home the message of this movie, and it features an all-time great knockout performance by Carey Mulligan. Not only is it my favorite film of the year, but I really see this thing over the next 5-10 years gaining a lot of steam and becoming a cult classic kind of movie. I compared it to American Psycho, and well, slightly different subject matter, and obviously the genders are switched in terms of the lead protagonist. I think it's going to be one of those movies that some people may not be able to process completely on the first viewing. Now, for this, I was, and I fell in love with it from the first watch. I can't wait to see it again, but I think over time, people are going to really come to appreciate this film more and more. I think it's as close to a masterpiece as any movie that came out in 2020. It is far and away my favorite film of the year. So that will do it for this list. Thank you for watching, everybody. Please click like. Please hit subscribe. Let me know what your favorite movies of 2020 were. Thank you very much, everybody. I will be back here soon, probably with a top 10 worst movies of 2020 list. So I am looking forward to that. Looking forward to trashing some piles of junk. I will see you then. Peace and happiness.